Hey guys, welcome. Brian Otto here. This is going to be my Pilot's Gauntlet tutorial for the Titanfall 2 any% speedrun for my 2020 edition of my tutorials. Hopefully these will be a bit more future-proof than my last ones. Keep in mind that these tutorials assume that you have watched both my movement and advanced movement tutorial. I will be referring to some of the terms in those tutorials without explanation, so I highly recommend that you check those out and familiarize yourself with the movement. Some changes to the format for this tutorial and all future tutorials in the series is that we're going to be showing off one required up to 3 different strats for one area. There will be like a baby strat, an intermediate strat, and then like an expert big boy strat. So keep an eye out for that. There will be indicators in the bottom left corner indicating like the strat level, and there will be timestamps in the description, of course. So without further ado, here we go. Enjoy. The first thing to understand about the Gauntlet is that it is partially an auto-scroller. It's not really an auto-scroller, but you want to be at certain locations at certain points of Lastimosa's dialogue. He has a bunch of set dialogue that he has to talk through, and you need to be setting yourself up to be in the right spot at the right time so that he's not saying the slow dialogue lines. Now, the game, of course, is in Mandarin, and I don't speak Mandarin, so when I talk about certain audio cues or dialogue lines, I'm going to be doing my best impression of the Mandarin dialogue, and I apologize in advance for how terrible this is going to sound. Now, at the beginning here, you can actually start moving as soon as there's kind of like this thunk that you hear after the screen fades to white, so right there. So that is the point in which you can start moving, and if we slow this down and look, you'll be able to see the W press right here, which is in prep for the sprint press right at the thunk, right there. And I'm actually jumping and turning my camera to the left to begin the strafe sequence here. Now, you don't need to be this fast all the way down the gauntlet, but what you need to be doing is getting to the wall run before Lastimosa says, Jiju pani, suhai. Something that is the audio cue, and you'll hear it here. And as soon as he says that, that indicates that you can wall run and continue on with the level. A point that I want to drive home is that you can make mistakes in your journey to the wall run, and you'll see that illustrated in this clip here. All that matters is that you make it to the wall before he says that audio line. I'm not going into too much detail on the strat for that reason. It's just a slide hop string on your way to the wall, and that's it. The big boy strat for this segment is wall run skip. You can skip the entire wall run sequence by generating enough speed via pure slide hop and strafe inputs, as well as a well-placed jump at the latest possible point before the gap. I'll teach you what I can here, but keep in mind that this is one of the hardest skips in the entire game. Your ultimate goal is to minimize the amount of speed loss via slides, and maximize the amount of speed gain via strafes. Understanding Titanfall 2's lower air excel values to maximize speed gain is key here. I personally used the last shadow in this first hallway sequence to help gauge my speed and lineup. The real difficulty in this strat is actually in just that, the lineup. With only one jump, it's extremely important to plan out your route and make adjustments so that you're landing right before the gap jump. You can make this jump with either a B-hop or a slide hop, but if you go the slide hop route, you probably want to make sure it's extended a bit so you get more vertical height from the extended slide hop. You don't lose any time from attempting this trick, assuming you still make it to the wall run at the proper audio cue. So once we actually get to the wall run, there's actually a couple other dialogue triggers that we need to hit. There's going to be one that happens around the wall run, and then there's going to be another that we're trying to skip at the little tunnel there. So once you actually get to the wall run, you're going to want to jump pretty quickly off it, and what we're going to try to be skipping is this dialogue right here. This is the one that we don't want. This is where Lastimosa would be saying, under here, stay low. So the goal is to get from this location underneath the tunnel, as quick as you can. But you want to stay on the wall long enough so that Lastimosa says his dialogue here. It sounds complicated, but it's really not. Normally you're just going to be doing a jump here. I'll do like a forced end boost, and then we'll just do 2 slides to get underneath the tunnel here. So it's not a very complicated set of movement, but it is important that you do it at the right speed. Eventually here you get your double jump, and it is pretty smooth sailing until you get to the shooting range. As far as the route to the shooting range goes, there's no set rigid route that you need to follow, though of course you still want to be getting there quickly. What matters is you're getting to the shooting range before the guns drop, which will skip another line of Lastimosa's dialogue. If you're using a timer, you want to be getting there before 122 on the timer in Mandarin or 125 in English. If you're getting there before those timestamps, that means that you have done it without any major mistakes or hitting the wrong lines of dialogue. So this segment here actually looks a little bit different depending on whether or not you're going to grab the EPG. That's a bit of a personal choice based on your skill level, but it also can depend on how quickly you get here. So you do need a couple extra seconds to make sure you grab the EPG because it is in a very out of the way location, being right up there above the shooting range. As far as grabbing the EPG goes, I like to take a right, left, right jump pattern with a turnaround grab at the end, and you can hold E for grabbing the EPG. You don't have to time it. I'll also usually tap to the left twice, as you see here, when going to the left wall, just to make sure I grab it at the earliest possible point. You want to make sure that you're getting a lot of height here because you want to clear this invisible wall that's going to be on the left side here that we'll look at again in a sec. And after you grab the EPG, you can just throw yourself into the void and it'll warp you right back to the beginning of the shooting range. As far as that invisible wall goes, you can climb on it. It's not the worst thing in the world. It just makes kind of getting up on the second wall a little bit tricky, so be careful of that. Alright, and so now we have reload skip. And so the whole idea with reload skip is that you're going to skip the reload animation that you normally incur when you pick up the R201 here. So you can really do this anytime before you pick up the R201. The fast timing is normally what throws people off. So you're just going to hold reload, and you're going to usually wait until you see the beginning of the reload animation, and then you pick up the R201, and you instantly are able to shoot it. You don't have to wait for the reload animation and the gun. The timing when the guns come down is normally a little bit tricky to some people. I usually start holding R about like right here when the guns start falling, and that allows me to pick up the R201 pretty quick. If you lose like a little bit of time here, it's not a really big deal. The timing for this is really pretty lenient. It's just people seem to get confused. So once I see the gun start falling, I'll just hold R. And you want to hold R, not tap it, and then you pick up the gun. And from the shooting range to the gauntlet, we actually have 3 different strats. So this will be the first kind of showcase of the baby, intermediate, and big boy strats for one segment here. Keep an eye on that indicator in the bottom left. The baby strat here is really pretty simple. After you clear the shooting range, you're going to slide and then jump, and then carry that slide hop string over to the corner where the frags are. Whether or not you plan on using frags for the gauntlet, it's best to come over here just because it prevents any sort of bug happening with the gauntlet when you go through the staging area too quick. The intermediate strat assumes you've grabbed the EPG, and it starts the same way as the baby strat, but instead you pull out the EPG, and you're going to shoot behind you in order to boost yourself over to the gauntlet. Ideally you can fit 3 of these in here, but there are some little nuances that you have to be aware of. When it comes to actually boosting with the EPG, you want to be shooting as directly behind you as you can, while also looking at the floor. This isn't like other games when you can shoot at your feet to get a boost forward, so finding that correct kind of whip to shoot behind you and then whip back forward is important. I'm normally strafing to the left the whole time that I'm doing this, but I'll usually course correct with a right strafe as well if I need to, just because it can be pretty easy to hit the wall right here, or this one on the other side. There are quite a few obstacles through here, so getting the right lineup from the slide here can be pretty important. So I normally strafe to the left, shoot, correct, shoot, and then I'll correct again if I need to. Another obstacle you'll have to be aware of is that Lastimosa will teleport from there to here and then to there. And when he teleports here, even though his body won't be here, you can still run into him here. If you're going fast enough, it won't be an issue, but try to route so that you're going through the middle of the hallway here. The final thing to be aware of is that you're probably going to be, if you have the skill level to be doing this, you're going to be taking the frags. So be careful not to come too far into the right side over here, otherwise you will pick up the arcs, which will make grabbing the frags here a little bit more tricky. It's not impossible, but it's much easier to pick up the frags when you don't have to use a button to pick them up. The big boy strat here is going to vary basically instantly. So you're going to be doing a wall kick and then instantly EPG boost. And hitting the wall kick and hitting the flick and getting the right kind of boost is easily the hardest part about this. This transfer from this segment to this segment is where almost all the difficulty lies, because it's going to determine your lineup as you approach a grenade, and it's going to determine how many EPG boosts you can get in. It's very hard. So when I'm done with the shooting range, I want to be kind of at the back middle of the stairs. I don't want to be too far to the left or too far to the right. That's going to mess up my angle as I approach the wall here. So I want to be about right here, and I'm just going to do a slide and then a jump, and I want to be landing at about the middle of the wall here, because you'll see how the ceiling rises up. If I'm kicking at the middle of the wall, it's going to prevent me from bonking right there. So you're going to be doing a wall kick and then the instant flick there. So the flick there is obviously going to be pretty tough, especially if you're on a much lower sense. I'm on 800 2.3, so if you're on something lower than that, it's obviously going to require some serious arm strength. So I'm usually looking at about the middle. And I want to be shooting after the kick. I don't want to be doing both at the same time. I want it to be kick shoot. Kick shoot is the thing that you want to be thinking of here. So from about the middle here, jump, kick shoot. And after you do the kick, it's going to be a very hard strafe to the left. Otherwise, you'll find yourself either running into this or going into here, which isn't the worst thing. But the best line is going to be the one that takes you as a straight shot over to the gauntlet. So just remember the kick shoot, I guess is what I would say. Kick shoot, hard strafe left. And what I showcased there was something that can happen where if you turn too early, the game will actually take away your ability to shoot as you aim toward the wall. So you want to be sure to do the turn after the kick. If you're doing the turn in the middle of the kick, you can't actually shoot when facing the wall, which is definitely not frustrating at all. Sometimes you might find that you shoot the EPG a little bit too high, here. And if that happens, you'll probably will only have a chance for 2 EPG boosts on the way over. And again, that's not the worst thing. The difference between a 2 EPG boost and a 3 EPG boost strat is, I mean, it's less than half a second, I would imagine. Course correcting like I did there with left to right strafes is always going to be huge. And if you're able to come in here with enough height to grab the grenade and then instantly transfer over to the gauntlet setup, like so, that is super nice, rather than having to slide here, grab the nade, and then continue. And now we have the gauntlet itself. And if you're familiar with me or my streams or my runs, you're going to know I'm not a fan of this thing in any sense. But that said, we do have 3 different strats for this depending on the skill level that you feel that you're at. And so without further ado, so the baby strat for the gauntlet is actually going to totally forego frags. And it's pretty hard to give you, a new runner, a concrete route on how to go through the gauntlet, just because this is such a raw, movement-intensive segment. I will give you the general advice that I give to all new runners, and that's that you want to take the straightest possible line through the gauntlet, making use of air strafing and wall kicks. You don't want to spend any time on the wall. You don't want to be doing a ton of wall kicks back to back, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. You want to be just taking the shortest possible line from point A to point B. The strat that is showcased here is just kind of a reference. If you're just looking for a good outline to start with, this route that you're looking at here is a pretty decent line. It's going to get you around a 22-second gauntlet, and without frags, that's pretty respectable. I even missed a wall kick there, so it's not super important. I wouldn't say focus on this too hard. Just make sure that you're getting through it using the philosophies that I explained, and you should be on your way to getting a decent gauntlet time. The intermediate strat here is going to use 2 frag boosts. It's going to be using the same initial route as the baby strat, but we're going to forego that wall kick on the middle cylinder. We only use the first 2 frags for the intermediate strat because it gives you a pretty solid foundation to work off of. Using those first 2 frags are going to give you a very, very solid amount of speed, and they mitigate some of the slower parts of the gauntlet. It's much easier to carry speed through the second half of the gauntlet than it is through the first without any frags. So the main thing to keep in mind is that you want to be timing this so that the frag explodes around the second wall kick there, and you can do that by pulling the frag as soon as you touch the wall, really, after the first grab. From there, you want to, again, just minimize the wall kicks as you come through. It's the same philosophy. Take the straightest possible line, and usually with the double frag, you'll end up with 15s, 16s. I'll show the route here one more time with slow-mo at critical segments, just so you have a good understanding of what's going on.
在战斗中必须保持平衡，速度很重要，但你也得能够击中你的目标。我们得练习这些技能，直到成为直觉反应。结束之后，我有东西要让你看。The
big boy strat here is going to make use of all the explosive options available to you. You can replace the EPG boost at the end here with the 4th frag. I just like doing the EPG here because frag boosts tend to send you on a bit of a downward trajectory after the explosion, and the EPG allows me just to go across the top of the tree here, which of course gives me a very nice line. I talk a lot about taking the proper line through here and spending the most time moving forward rather than moving laterally, and I feel this line really makes use of that. I'll just call this the quad boost strat here. This will give you pretty consistent, assuming you're good at it, it'll give you pretty consistent anywhere between like a low 13 to a high 14. Definitely I would say the most consistent fast strat through the gauntlet. There's always going to be a lot of variance here depending on the first frag boost that you get. This is obviously one of the best case scenarios. And getting through here without hitting these, you can even skip this wall kick here. And getting through there with missing that wall after you come through the tunnel is also really, really good. You'll probably notice that I'm spending a lot less time going into gritty details on the gauntlet in particular for all of the strats, and that is just because this segment is really, really complicated. And to be quite frank, it's not a segment that I enjoy, and that transfers to me not enjoying talking about it. So I hope that the kind of palette that I've given you as terms of strats here, you can study this and incorporate them into your own route, and I do wish you the best of success with that. And for the final segment of the gauntlet here, you're going to want to exit the gauntlet and then re-enter it, and make sure you slow yourself down. That prevents the gauntlet from bugging out and Lastimosa not skipping his dialogue here. That is a very big skip, exiting, re-entering, and so it's very important to nail that. Finally, the dialogue options for the end part here are going to be X and then V, the top and then bottom options, and that will get you to the outro sequence. And there's only a couple little things to talk about after that. So at this called out sequence for BT, the only real thing I can say is don't mash the Titanfall button. You don't have to call down the Titan ASAP. There will be a invisible timer that starts after Lastimosa reaches a certain line of dialogue. So don't worry about mashing. If you do mash the Titanfall button, BT will explode. I mean, you can try it out if you don't believe me, but if you mash that button, you're going to lose some time here. Trust me on that. And speaking of mashing, there is a bug at the end here with the menu, where if you're mashing the spacebar, you'll actually be able to select easy, no matter what difficulty the gauntlet puts you on. So if you just mash space as fast as you can here, you'll end up selecting easy, which is of course what any percent is ran on. And that's it. That's the gauntlet. Look at that menuing right there. We did it. We got through the first tutorial together. Good job, guys. Good job all involved. Thank you for sticking through this and watching it with me. Good luck, and I will see you in the next one.